Good morning, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. Let's start the live, get things going. Welcome, welcome. Are we all ready? What? Something wrong? Cool. Is it the shirt? Should I have worn a darker colored shirt? Okay. You've been waiting. Cool. Are you cooking today, Blas? Oh, that's better. Okay. Did it? It's on. Cool. No, but I love Salsa Verde. Okay, cool. Well, today I'm talking about basically I'm walking everybody through like a couple of different ways to make this. Because the thing about Salsa Verde is it's easy. Okay. This is my fault. I wasn't here to test. Not that that's really a thing. Yep, Salsa Verde. Is there a way to turn off ads during the stream? Cool. I hate that it starts within like 2 minutes of any stream that I do. Huh? Okay. Hi. Subject here is YouTube. Join my Patreon. What are we talking about? You should be jealous of the salsa. Cool. It's not actually the time of year for salsa, unfortunately. Technically, like end of June through early September is the best time of year for salsa, just because that's when tomatillos are going to be ripe and in season. But why not? Yeah, we know the mic's cutting out. He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on before we start the nice video part of this. Unfortunately, I feel like our streams, like stuff just has like been breaking more and more lately. I don't know. Just tell me when you want me to make noise and I'll attempt to help you out here. Just keep talking. Okay.
We don't make mistakes.
Yeah, so the recipe for this, which is kind of funny, the recipe for this is not what I'm going to make today. The ingredient list is the same, give or take, but the recipes themselves, I cannot do here because I do not have an oven. So my favorite way to do a salsa verde at home is to roast everything in the oven, or most like the peppers and the tomatillos in the oven. I cannot do that because I do not have an oven in my kitchen down here. So I'm going to do a like stovetop, and I'm gonna do two options on stovetop. One being like I have a wok back here, a flat bottom wok that I'm gonna use, and then I have a pot, because apparently that word escapes me today. I have a pot back here. I'm gonna boil some tomatillos and some peppers. And so boiling is a really common way to make salsa verde. I prefer to have some like char. I think just like roasting and kind of concentrating flavors makes it taste way better to me than boiling and adding water into it. But I am gonna do both. Yeah, the tomatillo. Okay, I know. I'm a little obsessive when it comes to the FAQs. I've been trying to cut back on those. So yeah. Yeah, tech issues are mandatory with anything, I think. Does Leopard know how to speak Spanish? No, but neither do I. So don't say yes. He knows over 100 words. Does that count? All the vocab from taking Spanish classes in high school. New Mexico green chilies. I have some Anaheim chilies here that I am going to add because I actually really like this with Anaheim's. It's not part of the recipe. It's just something that I like do to get a little extra volume. And because I think it's like a nice like vegetal flavor to add. Jalapeno. Serranos are gonna be better if you want to have more spice because jalapenos don't have spice anymore. And then my little baggie here of tomatillos. Got some onions, some garlic. Doing all the things. Most of them are bad words, probably. Yeah. Roasted peppers are so good. Slayer, I'm not sure if that's true. I got as far as love in the spring. That's as far as I got. I don't know what the rest of that is. Laverme, unfortunately. Yeah, I feel like sometimes I get a jalapeno that's like got a kick to it, and then other times they're like so bland and you just get like pepper flavor. So like I don't know. I really don't know what to do with the jalapenos, but I know like if I'm gonna use a serrano, I know that it's gonna like actually give heat. They have been in a slump. I feel like jalapeno poppers became too popular, and the people who like jalapeno poppers needed them to be less spicy because they're already putting cheese and cream cheese in it. And so like for mass produced foods and then people who are making stuff and getting them at the grocery store or whatever, like I just feel like they like started growing specifically for less heat in jalapenos, unfortunately. It is the most inconsistent heat pepper. Like I don't know what I'm gonna get for this. We'll find out. We'll find out if the kids can eat it or not. Oh, that's okay. You didn't miss much because my mic's been cutting in and out. So you just Googled it and that was the exact answer? For real? Like what I just said? Okay. Okay, cool. So are we like kind of, Yeah, we gentrified jalapenos. We absolutely did. I like absolutely did. How much are jalapenos out here? I do not know the answer to that, unfortunately. 70 cents a pound. I didn't look. I was only going for one. I didn't look at the price. I can get a bag of Anaheim peppers for like $3, which is probably still expensive because it's not bulk, it's in a bag. The second a bag goes around something, they can add like $1 to it, which is unfortunate. I really like Poblanos. Okay, so I really like Poblanos. I like how deep of a flavor they provide. I like how roasty they can get. But if I'm going for like a lighter salsa, I will use like an Anaheim or like a Cuban pepper or something like that. Dude, I agree. I don't feel like anybody knows. Anaheims are so good. I want to pickle some. I need to pickle some peppers. The recipe online has kind of like 3 versions of this salsa. So it offers like a traditional salsa verde, and then it also has a poblano, and then like a con aguacate, so like with an avocado, so that you get like a creamy kind of situation. Actually, the website says 4. Yeah, because you can like mix and match stuff. I think I have in there like a couple of different things. I think it's like poblano, and then with the avocado becomes a 4th version. There's honestly so many different ways. Like I started adding the Anaheim peppers to mine because I really like it. And so like honestly, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Okay, where is my internet? There we go. I want to see something. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Interesting. I like weird. Okay. Get out of this, go back to you guys. Okay. Cover in cheese boom. Yeah, okay. So you're kind of doing like a chili relleno kind of, it's like a diet chili relleno with your Anaheim. Sub an Anaheim for a poblano. Put some cheese over it. No breading. We're not gonna fry it. Right? No deep fry. It's like the diet version. But it's got the cheese and the pepper. I mean, you know. Yeah, we pretty much only eat fried food when we go out as well. Like I shouldn't say we only eat fried food. I should say the only time we eat fried food is when we go out, usually. Ooh, jerk chicken egg rolls. That sounds really good. Tostones. The plantains are upstairs. I don't know. The one I think they were out on the counter for too long. I don't think I can use them. I think if I'm gonna make something, I have to make maduros with those. I don't think I can do a tostone anymore. Unless you want them to be like a sweet and savory tostone because they're ripe now. Unfortunately. I bought some tostones at the beginning of the week. I bought all of this at the beginning of the week. I had a kid get sick and I wasn't sure if it was gonna like run through the house. So like, I bought a bunch of stuff. I'm a little sad this pepper started going a little bit. So I'm like gonna sit here and talk about like how you choose peppers at a grocery store. And this one is worse for wear, but it's because it's been in my house for over a week now. And there's nothing I can do about it. So that's what happens when you buy things in too advanced time, too much time. I don't know, whatever I was gonna say. Time to buy a lottery ticket. I know. We'll still see. Jury's still out. Give me like another 5 days, and if I don't get sick within the next 5 days, then we can like exhale and relax a little bit. His fever is not down, not enough, not all the way. If it stays down, I mean, he'll have gone 24 hours without meds. I guess as of right, yeah. So as of like right now, he's like 24 hours without meds. Yeah. Ooh, unagi, that's a great idea. Cause you know what's funny? Okay, see, I like where your brain is at here, cause I don't like the sweet potato with the ceviche. Sweet potatoes are far too sweet. And they're so like, they're so like dense and starchy that I like, it doesn't balance because the ceviche is so light, and it's like, I feel like you get like a split second where like the balance is there and then all I'm tasting is sweet potato. If that would be actually very good. That may need to happen. That might need to happen. That might need to be a thing. Why do you have to say my wife like that? Okay, I guess, I have a granola bar over here that I did not eat. I guess it's time to get our act together. The first thing, babe, I guess, I can probably do this kind of I can start doing this over here. I am gonna end up washing some stuff in the sink. I don't know if you're gonna want to have where you're gonna want to have the camera. Yeah, I'll keep it. I guess if you want to like push out a little bit, so that you can get kind of this whole space. I'm sorry. Yay, Violet! Welcome! We never miss a cooking stream. I love it. You're so nice to me. Okay, so this recipe is like really easy. Okay, how do I want to do this? Do we want to start? Cool. Here to learn, chef. Nice. Okay, that's the whole chat. Okay, cool. No doubt. Okay. Okay. I think so. Oh, today's recipe needs to get changed. Nightbot, no. Yeah, I thought it was. Whoops. It reverted? That's okay, you can fix that in a bit. Okay. Start whenever.
3, 2.
Hi, and welcome to the A Little Spoon stream. Today we are going to be making some salsa verde. I know there are a ton of ways that you can make this, both in cooking technique, if you're using a stovetop, if you're using your oven, if you're using a grill, if you're using just plain fire. You can do all sorts of stuff, and then there are a ton of variations. I do have a recipe online that requires an oven. The recipe itself is my favorite way to make it at home, just because like with simplicity and flavor as kind of like the best return on investment for those things. I like to bake the tomatillos and the peppers in the oven at a really high heat, and then throw on broil, get them nice and charred, and then kind of work from there. Unfortunately, in this studio kitchen, I do not have an oven. So today I'm actually going to talk about some of the other ways to make a salsa verde at your home. Mainly, we are going to be using a cooktop. So we're going to be cooking just in a saute pan, kind of. I've got a wok back there that I'm going to be using so that I can cover and steam stuff as well, instead of it just being a shallow pan. So if you have some kind of like a saucepan with the high sides, or if you have a wok or something like that, or even just a big pot, it would work. And then we're also going to be boiling some of the tomatillos and some of the peppers so that you can kind of see the difference in what you're getting. I'm going to talk a lot about the difference in flavor between the two and how they kind of differ. The other option and the only option that I will obviously not be doing today, or the two options I'm not doing today, obviously the oven, because I said I don't have one, or a grill, because we are inside and I'm not going to grill in my house. But we're going to get as much char on our stovetop as possible, so I can show you kind of how to work with that. And then the boiling option, obviously we're not going to be getting char, but it is a really, 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 really common way to make a salsa verde, is just to kind of toss your peppers and your tomatillos into some boiling water, let them cook through, and then turn them into a salsa. This salsa is going to kind of be a hybrid, because I am showing both ways to cook it. I'm actually like kind of splitting the ingredients in half and doing like a half and half situation, so that you kind of get a feel for how they both work, but then I'm just going to throw them together at the end and we'll have one final salsa. I guess let's get started. The first thing you're going to do, if you are following the recipe online, or not online, if you are following the recipe from my website, at this point you would turn your oven on. The oven is supposed to be on for about at least 30 minutes with the pan inside the oven at 425 degrees or 218 Celsius. If you get the pan kind of like ripping hot, when you put the tomatillos and the peppers onto it, they're going to immediately start to cook and sear, and it'll give you a nice little browning on the bottom, so that you get a little on the bottom and you get a little on the top when you go to use the broiler. So that's kind of the purpose of like having the pan in the oven, is that it's not kind of starting on a cold pan, and it can really begin just kind of like cooking the bottom of all of your peppers and your tomatillos. So if you are doing this at home, and I will kind of keep referencing back to the online recipe on the website, the main one. If you are looking for the recipes that I'm going to be cooking today, namely the stovetop ones, both with our wok back there, a saute pan, or if you're going to be doing the boiling, then you can go into the FAQs on the website's recipe. It's the very top FAQ, frequently asked question, is like what other ways or techniques are there to making a salsa verde, and it lists out the other 3 ways to do that, than the roasting in the oven. So if you are going to follow along with me today, that's where you would find the information. They're quick little paragraphs, nothing too intense. I give a lot of information about just like cleaning and prepping and stuff like that in the instructions. So I do think it's probably a good idea. I do recommend reading through the instructions, even if you're not roasting in the oven, to go ahead and read through that so that you can get a feel for like how things are supposed to look, what you're supposed to be doing to clean and prep all of the ingredients, and then move your way down into the FAQ, and then kind of roll with that recipe if you're looking to kind of pull out one of those instead of the recipe as written on the website. So the main recipe. Let's get going. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to clean my tomatillos. I quickly want to talk a little bit about selecting tomatillos at the store. Let's do this. I'm going to pull these guys out. Not all of these are great. I kind of did that on purpose. So let me pull out, let's do these guys. And then pull out, we'll do these. So these are what I'm looking for when I get a tomatillo from the store. I want the skin, this outer husk, to be really flush and against the tomatillos. So the way that tomatillos grow, if you've never grown them at home, they're really kind of cool. The husk grows first, and it looks kind of like this little like see-through lantern, and then the fruit grows into the husk and pushes the husk out. So when you have tomatillos that are like this, where like I can kind of squeeze, I can feel the husk is not tight around the tomatillo, these are underripe. Okay, so they'll still work, like they're still a good size. They had a good amount of time to grow. The really little ones that have skin that's like not flush against them are gonna be really underripe, and they're gonna be a little sour and a little bitter. So if you want to get a more kind of tomatillo flavor, and you want to get like a sweetness that you would get with these when they are ripe, you're going to want to see something like this, where the bottom kind of starts to pull apart. They've grown into the husk and continued to kind of do so. It's nice and flush. We've got a nice kind of green, almost shiny husk. When they get a little bit dull, like you can see a little bit of the brown on top of this guy. So like, see, we've gotten where he's grown further past the husk, right? But up here at the top, we've got a little bit of brown, and that will continue to kind of go down. The husk will dull, and this brown will kind of start carrying through the husk, and that is overripe and old, right? So you're looking for something that's gonna be a nice green, a little bit shiny, flush against the tomatillo, right? And then, yeah, and like fully grown into it. Hopefully that is helpful when you're going and you're kind of picking through and you're trying to decide how to go ahead and choose which tomatillos are good or not. I do like to get kind of larger size tomatillos. I think that they provide kind of like you get more inside, I guess, right? So it's going to be a less, what's the word I'm looking for? So like, the more internal you have, the sweeter and get rid of that. The sweeter and the more liquidy, I guess, your salsa will be. Let's do that. So there's going to be like the surface area compared to the inside of the tomatillo is less. So I prefer to kind of get larger ones. You can get smaller ones as long as they've kind of grown that same way all the way through the husk. And you've got a little bit of the bottom peeking out, and that the husks are still like a nice kind of greenish color. So what we're gonna do, I've got, for those of you, I guess I should say, let me just do a quick recap on how this works. This is a cook along. It goes from start to finish. I'm cooking the entire recipe through. There is nothing pre-measured. There is nothing pre-prepped. This is currently live. So if you found this video on the video playlist, this was originally alive. So I do have a chat over here. I am going to be kind of looking at what they're saying to me, answering any questions. I'm going to try my best to give as much information just in general as possible. But there may be other questions coming from my chat, so I will be reading and answering those as well. And that's kind of the way that this works, is we kind of just do everything live, and then I'll post the video at a later date, and you can kind of cook through. It does mean that I do a lot of talking. I do stop quite a bit and explain a lot of things. Hopefully you get a lot of information out of this, and you have plenty of time to cook through. And if you feel the need to skip ahead, please do. It's not a big deal. You don't need to listen to me wax poetic about how to pick a tomatillo at the store. So once you've got your tomatillos all out, you're gonna be kind of taking this husk off. And you just peel it, and then you give it a twist, okay? Sometimes if you don't twist hard enough, you still get the stem, but if you just kind of dig your kind of finger in there, or your nail or something like that, you can kind of pull it right off. So you're just gonna peel, kind of grip, give that a little pinch, and then twist, and it'll come right off. This is sticky. The husks have to stick to the tomatillo to keep them safe, so they're a little sticky. The way that you take care of that is just by rinsing them in the sink. I'm doing this here so that you guys can kind of just watch me do this. Normally I would do this under running water because I don't like when my fingers feel sticky. Like, this is uncomfortable for me. The ASMR ripping sound. Oh no, am I an ASMR like influencer stream? Is that what this is? See, like this is so old. You can hear, so like, I already did the newer ones. This one's okay. So like you can almost hear it like peeling back, almost like if you had like a press and peel, like a, I guess that's what it's called, right? Glad like trademarked that, where it's like press and peel and you can hear it kind of like Velcroing up. But if it's like crispy when they're old. It's like if you were gonna just like crinkle like some kind of paper or something like that versus something like near the top of this is still good. So it doesn't sound quite like that. It's almost like you're pulling tape up versus you're like crinkling something that's really dry, like fall leaves or something like that. When they're that dry, they're like old. You want to kind of make sure that the skin is not quite so crisped up. An old corn husk, yeah. I know I'm like up here by the mic. Hey everybody. Okay, so we've got these all cleaned. I'm going to, or dehusked, I should say. Let me take these out and throw these in. I forgot that I had a garbage can right here, so that's nice. We're gonna put these here. I'm gonna rinse these in the sink. Okay. And then what we're gonna do is toss them into a bowl once we have them rinsed. I'm gonna pull all these peppers and things off to the side now. There we go. Okay. And you're just gonna kind of rub all around, make sure that you're removing any of the stickiness from the whole thing. Okay. You found my Salsa Verde recipe? Yeah, so if you do end up making the Salsa Verde, it uses, I think, quite a bit of the recipe in the pozole. But you do take the Salsa Verde and you cook it down on the stovetop to get it like a really concentrated, like sweet depth of flavor before it goes into the chicken stock. It's really good. I make it all the time. Okay. So now we've got our rinsed tomatillos here. We're gonna move on to our peppers. Okay. So the recipe says to use like 1 or 2 jalapeños or serranos. The serranos are going to be spicier than the jalapeños. Jalapeños are kind of hit or miss these days. They're mostly mild. They're mostly very mild. They're mostly like, you know, whatever a feather is above a green pepper. Sometimes you can get something that's a little bit on the spicier side. I have kids at home, so I tend to stick to things that are less spicy. And I do remove seeds. If you want your resulting salsa to be on the spicier side, then do keep the seeds from the pepper. The capsaicin is in the seeds and in the membrane kind of around those. And the more you remove, the less heat you will have. So just kind of think about it that way. I am going to split. We're going to take the top of the pepper off and then we're going to split it. And I'm going to take a spoon. For those of you who are taking out the seeds, you can either you can take the top of the pepper off and toss it in there and call it a day if you want to keep the seeds. If you do want to remove the seeds, then what you're going to do is actually, I'll do this over here and then I'll just scrape it clean so you guys can see. I don't want to do it over the garbage can and then you can't see what I'm doing. You're going to take the spoon and you're just going to kind of dig underneath. Okay. And there you go. Okay, so now you've got your cleaned pepper. It's gonna go in. You do not have to even use these peppers if you do not want to. If you don't want a serrano, if you don't want a jalapeno, you wanna stick to the tomatillos and the onion and the spices and call it a day, you are absolutely welcome to do that. If you want to use ají pepper, if you want to use a cubanelle, if you want to use habanero and you want to really get like a nice kick, go ahead and do that. The habanero is going to add a little bit of sweetness that the other peppers that I just named wouldn't. I do also, this is not part of the recipe, I do also have some Anaheim peppers here. I really like these. They're like a little bit, how do I say this? So they're vegetal in the way that like a green bell pepper would be vegetal. But they're also brighter. So whereas a bell pepper might be a little bit on the sweeter and like a little bit more green grassy kind of flavor, and they're also deeper in flavor. These are gonna be brighter in flavor, more fresh, more crisp, but it is gonna give kind of like a nice vegetal flavor. And I just feel like adding these today. So if you're following the recipe, these won't be there, but you are welcome to grab some. If you found this and you wanna make it at a later date, you can grab whatever peppers you want and you can add them in. And it's not a big deal. So let me rinse these. I'm just gonna rinse this out. This is a really simple recipe. Far simpler than a lot of the other stuff that I have on my website, that's for dang sure. Okay. Okay, same thing, we're gonna cut the top off, and then I'm gonna just run my knife across. You can do this with your hands, you can do this with a spoon, doesn't matter. Sometimes a spoon is easier, just like a spoon is easier with ginger, like to take the skin off ginger. Sometimes it's easier to just use a spoon to scrape everything out. Also, I'm technically allergic to peppers, so it's mostly better if I am using a spoon and not using my hands to touch everything, but just don't touch my face, right? That's all. We'll be careful. Okay. I am allergic to over half my recipes. That's very true. This one in particular is pretty bad because I am allergic to fresh garlic and peppers and black pepper, and it has all of those in it. I still eat it. I'm like one of those lactose intolerant people. I'm like, you know what? It's okay if it hurts. Why not just wear gloves? I could do that too. I wear gloves when I do chili. When I'm using like dried peppers, when I have to take dried peppers apart, I'm like really careful with that. This I can wash off my hands easier than what gets on your hands when you're like taking apart dried peppers. That's kind of scary for me. I do wear gloves when I do that. Okay, we've got our peppers and our tomatillos. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just gonna throw a little bit of oil over these guys. Technically, you won't need the oil if you're going to do the boil method. But because I'm doing this on the stovetop and I'm just kind of gonna split everything, I'm just gonna put oil on it. There'll just be a little bit of oil at the top of the water when I go to boil these later. I'm gonna give them a toss. I'm not like dumping the bowl in. I just want to make sure that they're coated, so that when I go to add them to a pan, they're taken care of. If you're scared about like getting hit with oil, which will probably happen to me, you're also gonna want to dry these after you wash them, because water and oil don't mix, and then it makes for not a great thing when you're trying to cook them on your stovetop or in your oven for that matter. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to get my stovetop stuff together. And then we'll go back to the rest of the ingredients, because the rest of the ingredients are mostly gonna go in here, or they're gonna need like a quick cook on the stovetop. So it's gonna be nice and fast. So let's go ahead and get our boiling stuff ready. I'm gonna take a pot. It's basically like as much water as you would use if you were gonna do like a box of macaroni, right? Box of noodles. That's a good tip, Wheel. So we have someone in chat that just said, but right before I cut up fresh peppers, I'll rub a little bit of oil on my hands, or the hand that's handling the pepper, so that it's harder for the capsaicin to get stuck to your skin. That is a really good tip. That is a really good tip. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got my water. I've got about, I guess that's like what, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, so about 4 or 5 centimeters of space between the top, because we are going to be adding the peppers in. I'm going to put that back here, and I'm just going to bring that to a boil. You don't have to come all the way back here with the camera, hun. Thank you, though. It's going to take a while for that anyway. And then I'm going to get my other cooktop so that you guys can watch me do the stovetop cooking stuff right here. Look at us go. Not sure where I'm going to plug this in, though. That was kind of a... We'll have to figure that one out. I'll go between the two things. There we go. Or I can unplug my computer, I suppose. You don't like the seeds from salsa when there's seeds in the salsa? Is it do you actually can tell when there's like seeds and stuff? Yeah, I'm weird. Well, I guess okay, so two different things that you can also do. So not only are there different techniques for actually cooking the peppers and the tomatillos and your onions and all your stuff, you can also use a couple of different ways to make a salsa, right? So depending on how rustic you want it to be. So I tend to use a blender mostly because I don't like peeling peppers. Sue me. And so I will in fact do a little bit of peeling pepper, kind of showing you guys a little bit today. But for the most part, I hate doing it. So I will put it into a high power blender, and then I don't have to worry about any of the pepper peel, the outside of the peppers. But if I'm going to use a food processor, right, which gives me a little bit more of a rustic salsa, then I will make sure that I'm peeling the outside of the peppers, that I've steamed the skin and I'm peeling it off. Because that can be you'll literally feel pieces of tough kind of skin. And it's not a great look. The same thing if you were going to chop everything and have it really, really, really rustic. Or take a hand blender to it or something like that. You're definitely going to want to peel your peppers in those cases. I do have information on peeling peppers in the recipe on the website. I will talk about it today, but I probably won't really peel them that much because I have this guy and I'm just going to let it do its business. So. Okay, so I'm just going to take out, let's do half. So I'm going to take out some of these guys. That's probably good. And we'll do this guy here. Maybe one more. Cool. Okay, so this is what's gonna go in the pot. Those are gonna go on my cooktop. Okay. Let's do, while that's coming to a boil, I'm going to start measuring out the spices that I'm going to toast. Okay. So I'm going to use a kitchen scale. Kitchen scales are amazing, especially if you have recipes in grams, so that you don't need to actually use any of this kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to decide what I want to do today. Do I feel like using a kitchen scale? I think I'll use a kitchen scale for the onion. How's that? And we'll just use the volumetric measurements for the spices because it just feels easier today. I don't know. Not sure what I want to do. We'll do a 1/4 teaspoon. So you need a 1/4 teaspoon of black peppercorns, which is about 1 gram. You need a 1/4 teaspoon of coriander seeds, which is going to be about 1/2 gram. You're gonna need a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, which is 0.7 grams, and then that is going to get toasted. So I'm gonna just kind of do one of these guys, honestly. You know what? No, we're gonna use the kitchen scale. That just seems like a lot. Okay, so I need one gram. Okay. There we go. And then we need a 1/2 gram. So we're gonna bring it to 1.5, right? Was it half? Yeah. The thing about kitchen scales is that if it's a lower end kitchen scale, meaning like it weighs lower end measurements, then it's not gonna pick up on anything that's under like 0.4 grams, which is kind of frustrating when you're using small amounts of spices and stuff. And herbs especially can be a little bit tricky. But we'll make do. And then this is 0.7, so I'm gonna go to 2.2 grams because I'm adding. So this will be 0.7 grams, and now we're done. And now I have extra cumin in my hand. Yay. There we go. Okay, so these are our spices. We are going to toast them. Okay. Toasting your spices is a really great way to add, oh, I have to turn this on, to add immediate flavor. We're just gonna unplug that and hope it's fine. There we go. Okay. So it's a really good way to add flavor. If you are using pre-ground stuff, so flavor-wise, if you are trying to get the most flavor out of your spices, okay? Fresh spices is the first thing that you can do. The older the spices, the less flavor that it has. The second thing you can do is to toast your spices. Every time you add heat to a spice, the essential oils in the spice come to the surface. They get really fragrant, and the heat really increases the aroma, which increases the taste and the flavor of your spices. If you don't want to toast your spices, just whole grinding spices is kind of like the next level down. If you whole grind a spice, that friction and breaking up of the spice will also give off more aroma, which in turn will create more taste and provide more flavor for the overall dish. The next thing under, which is kind of the least, is to have pre-ground spices. So you can use pre-ground spices. It will still taste good, but you're not going to get nearly as much aroma off of those spices. So it will be like, the flavor will be balanced, but it'll be a little muted. If that is helpful, it's kind of why I like to toast my spices, just kind of get the best ROI on. What are we doing here? Can we menu on? Thank you. So it's just kind of like the best thing you can do for the most flavor. Wait, are we supposed to peel peppers? Yes. So if you are using, okay. If you are eating raw peppers, no, you do not need to peel them. If you are roasting your peppers in any way, shape, or form, the skin will peel off of the meat of the pepper, and then you get this like really like just tough skin. So the skin thickens. And the pepper softens, right? And they'll start to pull away from each other if you like cook and then steam them properly, and you can peel off that skin, and then it'll give you a better texture for your overall dish. And what you've done, especially if you're like roasting a pepper, so if you're adding char, that char and the smoke gets really into the meat of the pepper, so you're not really losing it when you're taking the skin off of it, like that flavor is still there. I sometimes worry about that. Like if I'm charring a pepper, I'm like then peeling all that char off, but that smoky flavor does in fact go into the meat of the pepper as it's cooking. So you don't really need to worry about it as much as you think that you do. But yeah, so yes, you do in respects when you are roasting a pepper, peeling it is your best option if it's not going to be like baked into something or have other textures that are going to completely take away from it. But if it's one of the main textures in your dish, you do not want to have the skins on them. Okay. You chop them down and cook them with the onions. I mean, that's an option. That's definitely an option. You soften kind of like everything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of sit here. I'm gonna let them sit for a couple seconds and then I'm going to kind of move them around. I've got this on a medium setting. You don't want to toast your spices on high. You want to toast them on like a medium setting. You want to give them time to warm up and then start to kind of toast. Okay, so now I can smell these. These are already done, okay? If you start on a high setting, there's a really good chance that you're going to burn your spices. If you burn your spices, they will get better. I think these are these are almost done. I can start to smell them. I'm seeing tiny little brown, like just a very light brown on the coriander specifically. And they are almost there. It does not take long to toast spices, not at all. Okay, those are done. Those are just gonna go in here. So we're gonna get, I guess in a second, 2 hands to get that top off. Okay. Okay, these are gonna go right in here and they're gonna end up in our salsa verde. If I was going to be using a food processor or a hand blender for this recipe to make the salsa verde, if I did not have like a power blender or something like that, these would need to be ground. So you can grind them in a mortar and pestle. You can grind them in a spice grinder. If you're going to do that, I do highly recommend that you toast the spices and then let them cool so that they are not, because I mentioned kind of the oils, right? So between the oils and the heat of the spices, they can get kind of wet when you start to try to grind them, especially in a spice grinder. It'll steam in there and then they'll get a little sticky in the spice grinder. They don't grind nearly as well. So you want them to cool off before you grind them. You could also do this entire thing in like a molcajete, which also awesome. You would start with the spices first. So you're gonna grind the spices up. It's kind of the same, it's similar to a mortar and pestle, but the mortar and pestles are usually smaller. The molcajetes are like quite large, and they are used for making salsas and things like that. But you would essentially grind the spices first, then you would put in the garlic and you would put in, and after your garlic turned into a paste, right? So once you've got your garlic worked in, then you're gonna use your cilantro and you're gonna work your cilantro and all that kind of stuff in. Just a little bit. I'd probably do like half cilantro and then add half later, just chopped and add it in, so that you get a little bit of it kind of throughout, but not too much because we don't want it to be like bitter. So it's like a nice like quick mashing. Then your tomatillos go in and your peppers go in and you're just kind of working everything. I was not intending to talk about the molcajete today, but that is also an option for doing this. It sounds to me like this is, yes, we are boiling. So I'm going to actually turn this down a little bit because I have it on high. And we are going to add these guys in. Okay, so you can see what they look like now. Got this nice green, bright green color. The skin is nice and tight. These will change in color. That's how you know that they are done. The texture and the color are going to change. Whoop, bloop. There you go. Everything in. When I was recipe testing this for how I like the salsa that I kind of liked the best at the end result, because like I said, there are lots of ways to make salsa. I tested both like boiling or roasting the onion with the ingredients versus having it fresh. And I preferred to have the fresh onion. I think it just gives like a nice crisp, clean bite to the salsa that you do not get if you roast it or boil it. In those instances, the onion will turn a little bit sweet, and then it doesn't provide as fresh of a flavor in your salsa. It is absolutely, if you liked kind of like a cooked onion sweetness kind of throughout, along with the peppers, the sweetness of the peppers and the tomatillos, and you're kind of cooking those and making everything kind of a similar sweetness. If that's what you want to go for, absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's up to you if you want to include your onion on your stovetop or in your oven or on your grill, or if you want to put it into your boiling pot of water, it's absolutely an option. I am not going to do that today because I do like to have the fresh onion. This is not a white onion. I do not have white onions in my house right now. I believe I have, do I say onion or do I give a specific type of onion? Well, I say white onion. Okay, this is not a white onion. White onion is the most traditional onion to be used in salsas because it is clean and crisp and peppery. This is a sweet onion, not the same thing. This is an intense onion. And so I tend to use it in a lot of my cooking, but traditionally a white onion would be what you use. If white onion is too strong for your tastes, you can do one of two things. You can get a sweet onion and just use something like this, which I'm a little sad I don't have a white onion in my house right now. Or you can soak your white onion in water the same way that you would like soak red onions in water to take some of the bite out of it. They're just sulfuric compounds that are in onions that are more so in white onions and red onions. And you soak them to kind of get a little bit of that out. The smaller the dice of the onion before you're soaking it, the more you're going to pull the bite out of it. So depending on how large your chunks are of onion before you soak them, will determine like how much bite you're taking out of it when I guess at the end after you've pulled them out of the water. If you are going to soak an onion to pull some of the bite out of it, be it white or red or whatever, do make sure that it's ice cold water. That is going to keep the cellular structure of the onion nice and firm. If you put them in like boiling water, obviously everything will start to soften. We don't want that to happen. So make sure that the water is cold or ice cold when you're doing that. Okay. Let's move on. So I need, I guess I've kind of worked through all of my spices. We're gonna actually before I move to the onion, I'm gonna make sure this is boiling back here. Let's do the salt, the lime, and the cilantro, and we can talk about that, and then we can do the onion kind of last. So for the salt, we're going to be doing about a half of a teaspoon, so like 1.2 grams. I'm just gonna do this real quick. So we're gonna do this guy, and that's gonna get tossed in. Obviously you can salt to taste. The salt level on this is just the salt level that I like, but you're welcome to add a little bit more or a little less salt depending on what you wanna do there. And then for the cilantro, okay, I've got some parsley in here too, so we're gonna have to work around this. For the cilantro, I actually like to use the stems, and like I'll use like the midsection of the cilantro or even just the bottom of the cilantro for salsas because it's getting blended down. You really don't need to use the tops, and the tops are like what you are gonna use as like a finisher or to like get mixed into something that's a little bit more rough and rustic. So if you were doing like a guacamole or something like that, or you're putting it on top of tacos or like whatever that looks like to you. And so the stems, both with parsley and with cilantro, they're one of the two herbs where you can use the stems and it's not going to make the dish taste any different. The stems and the tops taste exactly the same. There's like using them isn't going to make anything woody or bitter the way that it would if you were trying to use the stem of like rosemary or thyme or something like that. So like certain herbs, you have to strip the leaves off and only use the leaves. That is not the case for both parsley and for cilantro. So I highly, highly recommend if you are making anything that uses cilantro that is going to get blended down, just use the stems. It's a complete waste to just like to use a ton of the top and then throw the stems out when you can use the stems. They're perfectly good and there's no reason not to use them. So we're gonna just pick through and pull out the stems. I need about 25 grams of cilantro. Which is about a third of this bunch. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna cut the bottoms off just to make sure that I'm not getting any like dirt, kind of like old dirty pieces at the bottom of the bunch. And then I'm gonna do kind of like one of those. Okay, we'll turn this on. Hey, look at that, 25 and a half, that works. Okay, and then I'm going to put these tops back into a cup of water to keep them fresh. I do know, like, there are a lot of different ways to kind of store herbs. My favorite way to store cilantro is just in a cup of cold water in my refrigerator. It keeps them nice and crisp. But you can also get, like, I'll do this. You can get a towel and get it like a little, wrap it around the bunch and then put it in like a bag that's kind of open so that it can breathe a little bit. Okay, we'll do that. Move this over here. I don't need that anymore, at least not for now. And then I'm going to give this just a quick rinse to make sure I get any sand or dirt off of the stems. And then that's gonna go right into my blender. Do make sure if you're using like the entire kind of stock of the cilantro, I do also want you to make sure that you chop it small enough that it won't get wrapped around the blades. So if you're using kind of like a whole strip, let me pull one out. So something like this, if you toss this whole thing in, there's a good chance that like it'll get kind of wrapped around the blades and like stop it. So you want to chop down your herbs to make sure that that doesn't happen. And we are boiling. Okay. Now we're gonna do our garlic. I do have some pre-peeled garlic because I got lazy. I just made a ton of like roasted garlic for like almost this entire bag. I have a whole container upstairs of roasted garlic, but I've got some fresh garlic here. It says 2 to 3 cloves. So I'm technically allergic to fresh garlic, but it does taste better in this recipe to use fresh garlic. I did test this with roasted garlic, which is what I typically use, and it's too sweet. It's not as good. That fresh garlic just really adds a nice, same thing with the onion, right? It's like if you're using the raw onion, using the raw garlic, it just adds a nice bite that you otherwise do not get if they're cooked. Technically, I have a strong sensitivity. I don't go into anaphylaxis, but it's strong enough that like I'm gonna end up making this and I'm not even gonna be able to eat it. Unfortunately, this will be something that is like, it'll be like written like dad on top of it. Only dad can eat it. Make sure that because I have some jars of salsa verde upstairs, so I just need to make sure that like, yeah, that this is for him and not for me. That I open the right jars. Okay, so I am not even gonna do anything with these. These are just going right in. Okay, you don't need to chop them. You don't need to dice them. I'm taking kind of the end of the clove off so that I've just got like a nice fresh piece, and that's gonna go right in. I'm probably still gonna taste this. I just won't be able to eat a lot of it. Okay, and now we can finally move on to our onion. We need about 200 to 215 grams. This is too large. Here, we'll do this real quick. This is 340 grams. I'm probably gonna be using a little more than half of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just cut, this is the root side, this is the stem side. I'm gonna cut the top, that's my top, off to give myself a flat surface. And I'm using about 3/4 of this onion. So I'm gonna do one of those, and then I'm gonna do one of these. And because this is going into our blender, we do not need to dice this either. Nice and easy, really simple. And what I'm gonna do, let's keep this over here. I'm gonna try not to cry today, is I'm just gonna give this kind of like a rough chop, again, to make sure that my pieces aren't so big they get stuck in the blades. And I'm gonna just set this right on top of here. And I'm gonna keep adding until I get to about 200 grams, and then we are good to go. Yeah, if I were, I just inhaled. Ooh, if I were going to be dicing or chopping my onions, you keep the roots attached so that it keeps the onion together. Because I'm not doing that and I'm just doing this like really rough chop. Okay, perfect. So I've got about 215 grams going right in. There we go. And that is all the onion I need. And I'm gonna try real hard not to let my eyes tear up right now. Holy cow. The best way to keep your eyes from tearing up when you are chopping onions that I have found is to wear contacts. But if you don't have contacts, like me, or people who don't need glasses, then if you get a wet paper towel and just keep wiping your blade and your board and cover any of the chopped onion, it will keep the, so those same sulfuric compounds that I mentioned that give like a bite to the onions if they're raw, are basically like wafting into the air every time that you break through the cellular structure of your onion. And so covering them will help with that. So anything that's been chopped, if you just cover that in a wet towel, it will help. Another thing you can do is have really sharp knives. The sharper the knife, the less you're crushing your onion as you're trying to cut it. And the more you're just kind of slicing through, so the less damage you're doing to the cellular structure in the onions. And so the sharper the knife, the less damage, the less sulfur gets into the air, or sulfuric compounds get into the air, the less your eyes are going to be bothered. So, yeah. Okay, last but not least, we're going to do some lime. Oh, and actually we're done here. Okay, so these are done. Let me show you what this looks like. Oh. Okay, so let me show you. See, this is actually a good idea to do two different kinds, or two different ways. So you can see the difference here in color. Okay. There's that. So once they start to turn this color, they get a little bloated. They obviously are like, they take on some water, they get nice. There we go. So you can see the difference in color. They're gonna change to that. You wanna try to catch these before they split. Once they split, they take on quite a bit of water. So me not paying attention, whoops. They're still gonna be good. They just have a little bit more water in them than they otherwise would. Let me take these out here. Okay, so let's have a quick conversation about this. Because, see, you can see, so this skin, let's peel this. This is the skin from the pepper, and it's like really tough. And that's kind of like, it's just one of those things that it's kind of like a textural thing. It's not something you actually have to do to peel. But it is something that could be worth your while if like you really want to have the best texture. The way to get these off is to actually steam them. So I'm going to it'll be better if you on the stovetop ones. So I'm not going to bother with these guys. Well, let's see. But maybe we can do a little bit of an example here. Let's get a bag. You're going to get a bag. This is too big of a bag, but it's the only bag that I have down here. And I'm gonna just toss him in, and we're gonna let it steam for a little bit. It's better when they're like ripping hot out of the oven or off the grill than it is when they're boiling, because boiling you can only get to a certain temperature. Let me chop this down a little bit. Boiling, the most that you can get to is the temperature of boiling water, right? So it does cook it all the way through, but you can't get to like up into the 300, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And so you kind of get stuck. So like we're not like up in the 200 Celsius. And that kind of, makes it a little frustrating when it comes to peeling the outside of the pepper off. I'll wash my hands now that I've been handling these peppers. I touched my face and I can feel it. That was a mistake. Okay. We're gonna do lime juice now. And once that lime juice is ready, we have all of our ingredients together, except for the rest of these peppers and tomatillos. So I'm gonna cook those next. You can watch me cook those, and then we will go ahead and we will make the salsa. So let's do our lime here. You don't need a lot of lime. You only need about a tablespoon or 15 mils worth of lime. Celsius, I know. What can I say? I'm a woman of the people. Meaning all the people. Whoops. Okay. There we go. Lime is done. Let's talk these guys. I'm gonna cook those over here so you guys can see what's up. Move some stuff out of the way so you can have a little bit of a better view. Okay, so I do already have olive oil in here. There's a good chance that the water from the peppers is totally gonna like splash on me, but it's okay. We'll make it work. Okay, so we're gonna turn this on. We're gonna get this nice and hot. I do want this to be hot. So what I'm going to attempt to do from a stovetop perspective is essentially the same thing that I would get from an oven and a broiler. So I'm gonna get this to a nice, really high heat. Okay, I'm gonna get this to the point where if you sprinkle it with a little bit of water, all that water is gonna skitter around the bottom of the pan. Okay, we wanna have a nice, almost nonstick surface. We're gonna put the peppers and the tomatillos in here. We're gonna get them nice and charred and brown and get the outside cooked before the inside gets cooked. Then I'm going to turn the heat down and I'm gonna cover it with a pot lid, which is not down here. Dang it. Hey, hon. I'm gonna ask my husband for a pot lid. Do you know where the Dutch oven lid is? I thought that it was back down here already because I saw that he cleaned it and I thought it came down here, but it did not come down here. I was ready to just open the door and be like, ah, there she is, but it's not. I made the mistake one time of okay, that's nice and hot. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna start adding these in. There's going to be, because there's water in here, so it is gonna be, we are gonna be doing some things, unfortunately. Okay. Take some of the excess oil off because there's quite a bit in this. Okay. Wash my hands, and then we're going to start moving around everything in the pan. This is where you guys can see my, if I was doing a stir fry, you could see some stir fry skills. Unfortunately, that's not what you're gonna get today because we just got some peppers. So you can already see, let's do this. A little bit of browning here in the bottoms. This is what we wanna do. We wanna get a little bit of that. We want it to touch as much of the surface as possible. Okay. I do prefer using carbon steel for something like this. You could use stainless steel. The most important part, or like any kind of if you have a Dutch oven or something, that would work. The most important part is you're gonna want a lid that will fit a little bit. This already doesn't quite fit, but it's deep enough that it's fine. You might have to watch me struggle a little bit to get the top off because it's gonna expand in the pot and that's gonna be, or expand in the pan and that's gonna be interesting. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, so see we're getting some nice kind of char going. That's what we want. I'm gonna turn the heat up just a touch. Can we cook some fried rice in this wok? I really like to make stir fries in this thing. I wish I didn't have to have a flat bottom wok, but I don't have a gas cooktop, so we have a flat bottom instead. So I want this to be very hot. And once you start adding stuff to it, it's gonna take the temperature of that pan down a little bit. and just leave it high. It'll come back up, you'll be fine. And we're just gonna let them cook. When's the stir fry wok cook along? I'm not sure. I don't even have that recipe on the website yet. I do like a Cantonese stir fry sauce that I'll put on like fried rice, or like I'll fry up like vegetables and do like a beef and broccoli kind of a thing. But it's not on the website. I don't know when it will be on the website. I've been meaning to get it up there for like years because I've been making the recipe for a really long time. But other things came first. Once I feel like I have enough char on these, I'm going to cover this and turn it down low and let them cook through. And these are gonna do the same thing. So you'll notice, so we have our boiled tomatillos over here, and they've turned that like really nice kind of like, almost like a chartreuse kind of ochre color. And these will also do that as they cook through. It's not the boiling that did it, it's just the cooking of the skin will kind of turn it that color. But now we have char on these, we don't have that on our boiled peppers. So this is gonna make a great salsa, but this is gonna make a salsa with just a little bit extra flavor and a little bit extra depth. Trying to make sure that these peppers get cooked enough too, because I want the skin to come off of them, and they need to be really cooked to let that happen. The overhead camera is literally drilled into the ceiling. You like to imagine that my husband's hanging from the ceiling like Spider-Man? Nice. All right, we're getting there. I'm waiting to see a little bit of smoke start coming back up. I'm literally gonna smush this down with a tomatillo. So at this point, we've got all of the ingredients except for all of our cooked tomatillos and our peppers in our blender, and there's literally nothing else to do but make sure this stuff gets cooked. So this recipe, if I had done it only one way, would already be done. By now, if you decide that you are going to follow the recipe as written on the website, the main recipe, not from the FAQs, the oven should have been heated up, preheated. The pan should be hot enough. You should have been able to kind of get all of your ingredients in your blender, and your tomatillos and your peppers would probably be in the oven about now, doing their cooking. And they cook in the oven at 425 or 218 degrees Celsius for about 15 minutes or so. And they'll do the same thing. They'll turn that kind of like not quite green, slightly yellowish, brownish color. You will see some brown skin on like the top and the bottom. As the tomatillos cook, it won't be charred until you turn the broiler on. Once you have the tomatillos and the peppers cooked through, you can then turn the broiler on the oven on and let that go for another like 2 to 5 minutes. You'll see the top start to get really, really dark. And you may also have tomatillos start popping in the oven. They'll kind of split and pop open, which is not a big deal. It's kind of a big deal when you're boiling it because you don't want to add extra water, and that dilutes the flavor of your tomatillos and your peppers when you've got them boiling. But when in the oven, you're not diluting anything. If they pop open, it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, here, we've got some extra smoke now, which is what I wanted. Okay. I feel like we're at an okay place here. I want a little more color on this one, but we're good. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cover this and I'm gonna turn this down lower. So now I've got this at like medium low, give or take. And we're gonna let these steam for another couple minutes and cook through. If you wanted this to be faster, you could put a little bit of water just to add the extra steam in there. But as they cook, and if any of the tomatillos pop open, they will add some steam into the pan wok. So you'll be good. If you have, I think I mentioned earlier, so like a saute pan probably isn't your best bet, just because they're not very tall. And so you can't put the lid kind of over unless you have kind of like maybe one of those like pasta lids that are like rounded. Like if you can add some extra space, you could probably use a saute pan. But if you get a saucepan, saucepans typically have they're a little bit more like 90-degree angles. So instead of that like swoop out, they kind of go straight up, and they're usually a little bit deeper. So that would be an option as I knock things over in the kitchen. Another option is obviously you can just use your like a Dutch oven or something like that. Like if you have, this is obviously too big, but you can use a Dutch oven to get the same kind of char on everything with the lid off, and then you just put the lid on and you let them cook the rest of the way. So if you want to use like some kind of stock pot or a Dutch oven or something like that, that's also an option. Is this tomatillo salsa? I don't know who that is, so probably not. Sorry. I like this wok as well. I'm pretty sure that I do have this wok linked in on my Amazon storefront. Where can you find that? I think I have like a button that you can click on my website. It's at like the bottom of the page. I think that there's a link to my Amazon storefront, and then I'm pretty sure also in my like Instagram link in bio that there's a link to my Amazon storefront if you're interested in it. Well, I know what Tia is, but I don't know who that is. I know what Tia and Tio are. Oh, play on tomatillo. Okay. Yeah, and I was also kind of like Tommy and Tia. Okay. Tomatillo. Is that what you were going for? Tomas Tio. Uncle Thomas. Oh no. Lep caught on to the pun faster than I did. The world is ending. My husband, I say Lep. My husband is a streamer. He goes by the name of Leopard. So people call him Lep, and everybody in chat is saying Lep. My husband. Okay, we're getting there. We've got some steam, that's what I want. This takes longer than the boiling, but I like the flavor better, and so I go with it. And usually I'm not cooking this both ways, so usually this would kind of be going, I'd have the char, like I'd cook the tomatillos and the peppers, I'd get them nice and charred, throw the lid on, and then I'd be working on getting all of my ingredients into my blender that were not getting cooked, and then I would kind of toss these back in. So this is just kind of one of those things that we're letting that go through. This is sat for a couple minutes. Usually you want your peppers to sit for about 10 to 15 minutes in a bag if you're gonna try to peel them. I'm not sure how well we're gonna be able to peel this guy, but we can try. Let's see. Oh, a little bit came off. So you'll see the peppers that got roasted because they got hit with a really high heat against the skin. Where that roastedness char will peel way easier than these guys will. Just because it's such a high heat. But you can see, so where this is like all wrinkly, that's where the skin has come up from the flesh of the pepper. Those are going to be the easiest places to peel. You can also peel off. If you don't want to just like actually peel it like this, you can use like a knife to scrape it off. Also an option. I'm just glutton for punishment. Ooh, I think I just heard a tomatillo pop open. Yay! Got the middle section here peeled off. Let's see if we can. If you really cook a pepper like really well in the oven, and you get it like nice and steamed and nice and cooked, or like on the grill, the peel comes like right up in like big pieces and big chunks. But I just want to show you guys kind of like how it works. Okay, most of this is peeled. Ugh, sticky. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I guess if you wanted to do a creamy version, I do have, so this recipe online is listed as like a salsa verde 4 ways kind of a thing. So it offers, like, I have added the extra peppers in here. It offers added peppers. So the ratio of pepper to tomatillo, I think in the recipe online, okay, this one piece doesn't want to peel up here. I think in the recipe online I used Poblanos. This recipe today I'm using some Anaheim peppers, but Poblanos are they're really nice. They're really nice deep flavor. They add a lot to this salsa. So if you like Poblanos, I highly recommend following along with that and doing like a roasted Poblano salsa verde. You could also add other peppers, as I said earlier, and then you can add like some avocado. We're going to toss this in. So we've got, I don't know if you can see, so we've peeled this guy, and now we just have like the flesh of the pepper here, and that's gonna toss that in. And I'm gonna wash my hands because now I've got a ton of pepper on my hands. But you can add some avocado to the salsa, to our pitcher here to blend, and it'll give it a nice creaminess. If you do not want to spend money on avocados, if those things are just too dang expensive and you really don't want to deal with it, you can get a chayote squash. It's spelled Chaytoe, and you can get those from, I think, almost any grocery store. I've seen them all over the place, but they're little green squashes like this. And when those get roasted or cooked down and then added, they will get really creamy the way that like if you did like a butternut squash or something like that was, right? So it's like just a cooked squash. And it's kind of like a replacement to an avocado. So you can still get like a creamy salsa. It doesn't taste the same, but you get that same kind of like creaminess that you would want if you didn't want it to just be strictly peppers and tomatoes kind of a thing, or tomatillos. I don't know why I said tomatoes, peppers and tomatillos. Okay. How do I do my food testing process for recipes that have allergy ingredients in them? I still eat them. So you can see that these are kind of popping open on the bottom. We've got some of the tomatillo juice coming out of here. I'm gonna put this here. Put these in the center for a little bit extra steaming. We're gonna put this on. We're almost cooked through. You can see that color is now on the bottom. So we've cooked from the bottom up and the top parts are still green. So I've just flipped them over. And now I'm gonna let those bottom parts cook. It should be faster than the first half of this just because they're mostly cooked all the way through and I've got a good amount of liquid in there to help them steam. Yeah, I just eat it anyway when I'm doing recipe testing. For the most part, what I do, so I obviously know like what my body can kind of take, right? When you live with an allergy, you kind of know how to deal with it. So a lot of times I'll start with ingredients that I know that I am like less allergic to. So like roasted garlic instead of fresh garlic. And I'll try the recipe so that I can really get a good idea because I know what roasted garlic is going to taste like in a recipe and what it's going to do to a recipe. So I can taste the recipe, and if I feel like the roasted garlic is misplaced and that raw would be better, I know immediately that I need to use raw garlic. And so I will do most of my testing with like ingredients that are less that are innocuous to me or like less scary to me, and then I will kind of add in the ingredients that I really shouldn't be eating. And then just like give like a single taste and let everybody else kind of do some tasting and be tasters for me, and give feedback. Yes, this is a wok. It is a wok, yes. Woks are not just for Asian cuisine. I do have a pizza. I do have a Neapolitan style pizza. It's really good, but it needs to be made in a pizza oven or in a regular oven with a pizza stone or a pizza steel in it. I have neither of those down here in my studio. And I also let the dough proof. I let it cold proof for 48 hours in a refrigerator, which is not conducive to a live cook along stream. It would be really cool to do that. Maybe one day if we do one that's like, we have the equipment to kind of like walk around and do stuff, I could like have it upstairs in my normal kitchen and then like move you guys around to the outside so you can watch the pizza oven, but it would be really hard to do pizza, unfortunately. All right, let's see. I'm getting impatient. All right, that's good. I'm good with this. Okay, so you can see what we've got going on here. And the kind of also nice thing about using the wok is that I can deglaze this as well. Okay, so we've got our no longer green tomatillos. I'm gonna put these guys in here. I do have my peppers. You can tell how wrinkly the skin is on these. These will be much, much easier to peel than the other one. But I'll peel the jalapeno. I'm not gonna peel these. I'm gonna just chop these. All right, let's do this. Ugh. Okay. We're gonna give these a chop. They're going into my food processor. There's no reason to peel them because they're gonna get blitzed. But I will show you, again, I'll show you a pepper into a bag, let her steam for a couple minutes. Yeah, I'm using a Dutch oven lid on the wok because it's my biggest lid. A stock pot lid would probably work too. Okay. There we go. Honestly, like this is so, you'll see. So you see how like wrinkly that got? It like peels right off because it got cooked at a higher temperature. So because the pepper got cooked at a higher temperature, that entire, like it'll come off in chunks instead of tiny little peels. Did you find it? The pan? Yeah. I really like this wok. It's a very good wok. I'm gonna deglaze this real quick. So part of the recipe, the main recipe on the website where you're doing the salsa verde in an oven, you'll notice that the tomatillos and all that char and nice browning and stuff like that will happen in the bottom of the pan in the oven. And the same thing has happened here in my wok. So I'm gonna quickly deglaze this with just a touch of water. You only need about 60 mils, like a quarter cup, 2 ounces, give or take. Let's do this. I'm gonna turn this back on actually. Let's get this up high. So I've got some really nice browning going on in the bottom of this pan. I want this to be in here. It's not necessary, it is optional, but I really like to, anytime that I have flavor somewhere, I like to make sure that I'm getting all of it and that I'm using it. So let's do, I guess we're using this. Okay. So just a really quick deglaze. Off. And then, I'm gonna pour that in. And she's done. Okay, I'm going to move this guy out of the way and pull my blender up. And then we're gonna do our last little peel here before we blend and we have our final salsa. So now you've got to see 2 different ways, both boiled and in a deep pot on the stovetop. Okay, this really didn't steam for super long, but I don't wanna wait anymore. I think I said earlier that you should be steaming your peppers for like at least 5 minutes. It's usually somewhere between 10 and 15 because they're nice and hot, and that steam will help with the skin, help you to remove it. Let's see. Having nails is great because you can kind of just run your nail along and pull the skin off. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the skin off of our pepper. Going in, washing my hands one last time, kind of rinsing my hands one last time. Okay. You're looking for a tortilla press. What do I want to use? I just bought like a carbon steel one. In all honesty, I highly recommend the presses that are on that are similar to the Masienda website. I think they sell them as well as masa. I mean, they're a company that makes masa, but their presses are awesome. They look like big kind of plastic or metal like squares with a really long lever. They get them really nice and flat. Or thin, I should say. Mine's okay. My press was just kind of like, I wanted to have one and I didn't have a ton of money and I just kind of went for it, but I highly recommend those if you're looking for one. And I also recommend, if you have any of those like reusable, reusable bags, like not Ziploc, but like if you have the reusable bags with the close the top, they're like made of kind of like a silicone plastic something or other. I highly recommend using those for your tortilla press. Slice the sides down. So get like a big one, slice the sides down. And if you want, you can slice the zip top off. It's not necessary to keep it, but then you would essentially use that. So the masa, the ball of your masa that's ready for the, oh my God, I can do it, to make a tortilla, you put in between those and then you press with the press and then peel off the bag. It's better. Like, I know that it's common to just use a plastic baggie as kind of your way to keep the masa from sticking to your press. But I then can throw that into like the dishwasher, or do whatever I want with it. And I've been reusing the same one for like years now. So yeah. The Tiny Lakers say, this is my salt cellar. I keep salt in this. Yeah, Macienda makes a really good one. And their maseca is like incredible as well. Okay, I'm going to now blend this real quick. And now I have some salsa verde. If I can get the lid off. There we go. Oh, that looks good. Okay, I need a bowl. Okay. Now, if only I had some tortillas. That's okay. There we go. Nice big. This makes anywhere from like 2 to 3 cups. So I guess that's what, 480 to, I can't do math, 720 mils worth of salsa. That's really good. I'm not gonna be able to eat a lot of it, but it is tasty. And there you go. There's your salsa verde. Done. Yay. Am I making chips? I have some chips upstairs. I also have some plantains upstairs, so tostones will probably be made at some point this afternoon so that we can have it with our salsa verde, and it'll be really yummy. Cool. Okay, well, for anybody who came to this video and it's not alive, I'm gonna go ahead and say a little outro now, and then we're gonna cut that and I'll stay with my people live for just a little bit longer. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this helped you realize how flexible you can be with a salsa verde, the kinds of peppers you can add to it, the way that you can cook it. There's a whole lot going on, and it's just a really fun and easy thing to kind of make, to have as a snack, and that you can kind of just throw things together, and it's really enjoyable and really yummy. If you do have any questions, if you're watching this on my YouTube from the playlist and you have questions, feel free to comment underneath this video and I will see it and I will respond. And hopefully, if you did not hear anything today about the salsa, how to make it, the ingredients, how to use it, any of that kind of stuff, then you can go ahead and send me a comment and I'll reply to it and I'll help you the best that I can. This will last about 1 to 2 weeks in the refrigerator. If you want it to last longer than that, you can freeze this. So just pour it into whatever containers you like to use. You can do little like smaller end pucks or a cup at a time, silicone containers or things like that. And then you can defrost them as needed. That will last somewhere around 3 to 4 months before the flavor is going to start to kind of go a little bit, but it does extend the life of it if you aren't going to eat it fast enough, because like I said, it does make quite a bit. Let's see. Yeah, if you like this kind of content, please come join us. We do, unless like a holiday kind of happens, it's the first Sunday of every month. We do a cook along, and I'll post about it and talk about it so that everybody kind of knows what's going on. You can get the recipe ingredients ahead of time, and then you can show up at the live stream and you can cook with me. If you also like this kind of content, please do like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, and you can go to my website and find more recipes just like this one at alittlespoon.com. I do also have a Patreon, so if you feel like supporting monetarily and you want a little bit more behind the scenes and information about what I'm up to, that's a great place to find me. Our Patreon links to a private Discord where we chat about all sorts of foodstuffs pretty much all the time. What we're making, recipe help. If we're traveling, we like to give recs for places to go to get food and drink abroad. So if you have questions in there, we all chat all the time. So if that's something you're interested, that's fine. If you just want to lurk and you feel like supporting because you like the content, but you really don't want to talk to people, also fine. I understand, not a big deal. But it is an option if you feel like monetarily supporting this. I do not have ads on my website. I do not want to have ads on my website, and the Patreon is kind of one of those things that keeps that from happening. So it is helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye. Cool. It is some good salsa. I don't have chips down here. I would have had some already. Just take a spoon. I should just take a spoon and try it at the very least, right? Oh, it's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the jalapeno had absolutely no spice. It's not spicy in the least. Oh, that's good. See, I stopped boiling. I stopped boiling my tomatillos. I used to do the boiling of everything. And then I did it on the stovetop one day because I was like, I want some char on this. Like, I want these to be roasty. And I went from boiling to doing the stovetop method. And then was like, I don't feel like staring at this for 20 minutes and keeping an eye on it. So then I moved to doing the oven, and I've kind of just been bouncing around from technique to technique. But for me, the boiling it just gives it a little too watery of a texture. I much prefer having a more condensed flavor and not and the stovetop and the oven do that for me. So. Oh no, I actually stopped doing like any kind of like, what is it called? When you like order for delivery, groceries for delivery. I stopped doing that. I did it once and like a ton of the things that I asked for were not delivered to me. Thanks. And were delivered incorrectly, weren't the right size, weren't the right brand, weren't the right whatever. And I was saying, no, don't get that. So it was like, hey, can I substitute this? No, that's okay. Just don't add it. And then they did it anyway. And I was like, you know what? I can't do that. Oh, you know what? You know what I didn't talk about, which I now can't even explain because I don't have any more peppers on me. Dang it. I wanted to talk, I talked a lot about how to pick your tomatillos, but I didn't talk about how to pick your peppers. Haha. Pick your peppers.
Peter Pepper.
Pickled peppers. I said I wanted to make pickled peppers, and then I almost said that out loud.
I thought about you saying it.
So, hi there.
Why is it green?
Because it's
Wait.
salsa.
You sick?
No.
You sure you're not sick?
One dip at a time. Okay.
Don't double dip.
When you're picking out peppers, what you're gonna want to do, we'll mimic a pepper. So when you take a pepper, obviously you don't want it to have any kind of like indents or places that are softer than others. You want the whole thing to feel firm all the way around. The top of the pepper where the stem meets the top of the pepper, you don't want that to be brown or have any kind of discolorations. You want it to be the same color as the pepper, like the stem is the same color all the way through. And then you're gonna take your finger when you're holding any kind of pepper or tomato. This also works for tomatoes. hold your finger against the skin and give it just a little bit of a push and rub forward. If you feel the skin, right? So we just peeled those peppers. You know that now that there's a skin that sits over the flesh of the pepper. If you push forward and you feel that wrinkle under your fingers, that's a kind of like an older pepper than if it doesn't do it. So there's a level of give. Like if the pepper's like really, really hard, it might be underripe. So you're looking for something that's just firm, but has some give. And then you want to be able to kind of push and rub your finger across the top of it, and the skin doesn't kind of come up and wrinkle across the top of it. And that's when you know that you have a ripe kind of perfect pepper. If you're feeling any of that wrinkling, or you're feeling areas of the pepper that are softer than others, then you know that that's kind of like overripe or older, and it's been sitting in the grocery store for a while. So there you go. Something that the people who are getting this video at a later date don't get to hear. So yeah. Make chilaquiles. I like to do, I'll do chilaquiles, or I'll do like I'll throw nachos and I'll get some like Oaxaca cheese and shred a bunch of cheese over the top of the small pieces, because they all stick together and it makes it work. Okay, I need you to not run in front of the camera anymore, love, okay? You already came in once, that's good enough, okay? We're almost done, I promise. I don't like to have the kids in live, like on streams. You end up using a fork at the end of your nachos anyways. Yeah. I tried that one. I don't know. I get what you're saying. I just get in there with my hands. I just end up like doing these kinds of things, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like covered in like sour cream and salsa, and I'm like, I don't even. You wish you watched this before going to the grocery store? Oh no! Are you planning on making this cool? It looks good, you'll try it? Cool. You have it saved? Nice. It's so easy. Like it's basically like you're cooking half the ingredients and then it just gets blended. And like it'll fill up, so I have like mason jars, and it'll fill up like 2 of those and then have a little bit left over to like eat, and then I'll have all of that. And I'll just pull it out like anytime we're making pretty much anything. If we're making like quesadillas, or if we're doing like kind of like the rice bowls with like seasoned chicken and avocado and whatever, like I'll throw this on that. I'll throw it on tacos. I'll throw it. You can do it pretty much on anything. I mean, if you wanted to do like enchilada sweet sauce or something like that, you've got your salsa verde here. Oh, somebody mentioned earlier, I have a pozole verde recipe. That is this, and then this essentially goes into like chicken stock with some shredded chicken and some hominy, and then like a couple of sides if you want to do like some cabbage or some radish or something like that. And it's just really good. It's just kind of one of those things. I really like knowing how to make kind of base items and then putting them on top of a whole bunch of different stuff. So yeah, you did pick up stuff to make guacamole. There you go. That's an upside for sure. Got the items for the pozole verde. Looking forward to giving it a shot. Cool. Good luck. Okay. So the interesting thing about that recipe specifically is that you can make that as from scratch as you want. I set that recipe up as like, if you wanted to fully like nixtamalize the corn to make the hominy, like if you want to go from a literal ear of corn, of field corn, you can do that and take it all the way. Or you could get something that's kind of been pre-mixed but is dehydrated, or you can do like canned hominy. And I've got options for what you want to do the whole way through. You bought the canned? That's okay. That's how I make it now. Unless I want to be really special, I won't like do the nixtamalization or any of that kind of stuff. What was that word? Was it the nixtamalization? So corn has a lot going on that we can't digest, and you have to soak it in a really alkalized water in order to break it down enough that you can then pull the like there's also a husk on the kernels, and you need to kind of peel that off the same way that we kind of peel peppers, or you would peel like the hot kind of same skin off of a garbanzo bean. It's very similar to that. If you want to be able to digest it, you have to be able to kind of take the pericarp off, and then you take the kind of husk off of the corn kernel. And then that is what gets eaten, like turned and cooked and all that kind of stuff, and then eaten in the pozole. That's what you enjoy most about the website. You would have Googled it if it wasn't an FAQ. I try to like, what are the questions people are going to ask, or be like, I don't know what that is, or how do I do this thing? But yeah. Yeah, and nixtamalizing also allows us to get minerals from the corn we otherwise would not be able to get, because you're breaking it down enough for us to be able to kind of absorb some of those things. But yeah, the canned hominy, the only thing, and it is in there as like a to-do, if you're going to use canned hominy, I've found that if you roast it in the oven for about 15 minutes, it pulls the moisture from the can, like, cause it's been sitting in like the juice in the can. It pulls some of that moisture out, and it makes them really nice and starchy in a way that they're not if you just like kind of pour them right from the can, like if you just drain them and then toss them into the soup. So I do highly recommend doing that. I recommend not skipping that step if you are going to use the canned hominy. Or if you wanted to experiment, you could do like a half and half and decide which one you like better. But yeah. Corn tortillas, processed traditionally with lye. Yeah, so like you could do, so yeah, very, very traditionally, lye is used. Now you would use cal, which I think I have some in here. I think this, calcium hydroxide, I think this is it. I thought I had a bag of cal, but I guess I don't. So if you go to a, nope. No. Okay, if you go into a like Mexican market, you'll find pickling lime. So lime is the alkali that you're going to be using. If you go into like a Mexican market or like of some kind, it'll say cal. That's the brand. It's just CAL. But what you're basically looking for is calcium hydroxide, which is lime. And then I think the instructions for that recipe also give like the proper ratio. So the weight that you're supposed to have of water, ratio of like how much of the calcium hydroxide you would use per how much water, so that you can kind of decide what you're gonna do. But you don't wanna go too heavy, because then it's like not good for you to like ingest or touch or like have too much going on. So you have to kind of be careful, which is why if like for traditional purposes, like using actual lye is like super caustic. You have to be very careful with it. And so it's kind of one of those things that like, this is a very like, hey, we're doing this in a modern kitchen and like gentrifying the recipe. We're not like out cooking it in like the very, very traditional way, but traditionally, yes, you would use lime. I did not do that. I did the calcium hydroxide because it's safer to use in your home and other stuff. So yeah. Yeah, bicarb. Okay, so bicarb of soda, sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. Jesus, my brain. Baking soda can also be used a lot of the time, especially for things that you need to like baking soda is an alkali product. And so a lot of the times if you're trying to increase your pH, water is a neutral 7, 6. Shoot, I forget what's neutral, if that's 6 or 7. But if you want to increase your pH, you would add baking soda to that, and that will do that for you. And essentially that will that alkaline solution will help break down at a molecular level whatever is on the surface that it touches. And so if you didn't have something like this, you could just use like a boatload of baking soda. However, baking soda also has a metallic taste to it. So if you use too much baking soda in something, it does give your food an off taste, which is why something a little stronger will be better than like putting a ton of baking soda in. But I've seen people use like a ton of baking soda in like if you're doing pretzels or something, they want to have a lot of browning because having a higher pH increases the ability for something to brown when it's heated. So it increases the Maillard reaction when that happens around 300 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. And so the higher your pH when it starts, the more browning you will get. And so a lot of people will add like baking soda to like a whole bunch of different stuff. Like you can use baking soda for velveting beef, which is used like really common in Asian dishes where it breaks down the proteins. So you're getting some of that like alkaline solution. It's like breaking down the proteins in the meat at the surface level, and it gets it like nice and chewy and soft, but then it also promotes browning. And then the same thing, you put the more baking soda in your cookie, the browner and crisper it will get. The more baking soda you have in water when you're making a bagel or a pretzel, the browner the outside will get, and the thicker of a skin you're gonna get when you boil them. And so it's like, yeah, that's velveted. Yeah. All the things. Potassium carbonate is used in brewing for a lot of neutralizing acids. Yeah. Yep. A teaspoon of baking soda in red sauce. Because yeah, exactly. Because it increases the pH, reduces how acidic it is, and then helps you out with that. Absolutely. Cool. Science. Fun. Okay. We're so off topic for this recipe. Kind of, I guess. I guess, does anybody have, let's see. I think, understanding the whys, because like I can post a recipe to the website, and I like doing that. I like saying like, hey, here's a recipe I worked really hard on. I hope you like it, you know, that kind of a thing. And making sure that I've got some kind of balance between like the cooking technique and the ingredients that are gonna give you the best flavor with like, not necessarily the least amount of work, but like not kind of taking things a little bit too far, you know what I mean? And I can put that recipe there and people can cook a recipe and leave, and that's fine. Like if that's all you wanted was the recipe, it does not bother me. But the FAQs are kind of, to me, they're like my baby. They're like the part that I love the most about the website, because I want people to learn. I like teaching, and I want you to learn something that you can then take with you for like a number of different recipes, and other times you see it. So like if you're going from, you know, one recipe that talks about an ingredient or a technique, and then you see it again and another recipe on my website and I'm talking about it there too, and you're like, oh, because there's this and this, and like being able to connect those dots and like understand that and then take that with you when you go to make somebody else's recipe, like that's kind of the cool part for me. Because the more that you understand the connections and like what things are happening at like a molecular level or like with like kind of scientifically, the more discerning you can be, especially now, about recipes on the internet and what people are posting and what AI is posting. Because a lot of, I think something like 51% of what is on the internet is now AI. And a lot of those are food blogs. A ton of food blogs that are ranking right now are AI, and they're not like actual people. And so their recipes are not tested by a person. Their recipes sometimes don't make sense. The instructions might not make sense. And so if you are going in not understanding like, you know, why that technique on this does not make sense, or the order of adding those things to this dish doesn't make sense, or why is this ingredient so high, or whatever that looks like, and how it's going to affect the rest of the recipe or the resulting dish. It's kind of hard to go in. And so like what I'm trying to do is like make sure that people can get some of that knowledge so that they can go look at a recipe and say, this doesn't make sense, moving on, or those ingredients, they are not going to balance well, or that's not, you know, what makes sense to me or for what I want to eat, and then move along. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to do that. Yeah. I've gotten to that point too, Unagi, where I've got like several websites that I go to if I'm looking to try something at home for just myself, and like everywhere else is not. Yeah, it's really hard. Cooking is a lot more like Legos than I thought when I started. That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, it is kind of like Legos. That's funny. Yeah, and once you can become, right, the Lego movie, you can be a master builder. And soon you can look at ingredients and just be like, oh, and like put it together, and you, voila, make a recipe. I like the analogy there. That's good. Okay, well, I think it is now, okay, we've been live for about 2 hours. I'm gonna head out. It was really nice streaming with you guys today. Does anybody have any like final last minute questions that I can like rapid fire answer before we go, or are we all good? How are we doing? Platinum, like hair? Probably never. I would look really washed out with light hair. I need to have a medium contrast hair tone. If it's too dark, I look pale. And if it's too light colored, I like blend in and I disappear. I need to have something kind of in the middle with hair color. I could do like a caramel color, but I couldn't do platinum. That would be, whoo, platinum would be not good. I can't even, whoo, that'd be not it. Were you even talking about my hair color? I feel like you probably weren't. Ooh, like the thick chunky highlights? Hell yeah. Green was actually not really a choice. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was gonna do blue again. And when I walked in and the stylist was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I really don't know. I think I'll just go with blue, but I've been blue for over 2 years. And she was like, well, what if we just made your hair color the same color as your jacket? And I was like, I like that color. Let's do it. And that was as much choice that went into it. So, or as much thought, I should say, that went into choosing a color. It's just hair. But I think at this point, I'm gonna have to, yeah, I'll have to either do some kind of like ombre something to grow it out, or I'm gonna have to just go like a brown in order, because like there's really nowhere else to go from green, unfortunately. So. Yeah, she literally was like, you know, your jacket's a really pretty green. We could make your hair color that, and I could, you know, add yellow here and da-da, and we can make sure that the blue doesn't come out. And I was like, okay. Okay. I will see you guys next time or around in one of Lep's streams. I did find a good stylist in Colorado, yeah. See you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm gonna go enjoy this salsa, and I will see you guys next time.